He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. What's happening? Benton here, listening to some big trucks roll by. An earlier start than normal, Monday morning, September, 15th, 2025. Shout out to the replay crew, broadcasting live from the back seat of a Nissan Versa hatchback parked on the streets of Los Angeles. First thoughts this peaceful morning, and it has been a peaceful morning for Mr. Benton. 2 mornings in a row, waking up spiritually attacked, first in the dreams and then upon awakening, noticing some potentially fear inducing thoughts. Fear, of course, is the mind virus or the mind killer, or one of them. And we do have a page of notes to get to. Apologies in advance for any long pauses. And this is part of the reason why it's better for me to, at times, be quite disjointed and tangential with respect to the discourse. Because in seeing in my mind's eye several different directions to go, uh, not taking any of them, they all drop away. Pick one, sir. No. Interesting day yesterday of streaming. What, 3 different streams? P-bombed for the first and hopefully only time. Uh, that was interesting. But yes, the spiritual attacks of the morning, an opportunity for a spiritual warrior genius to show off his stuff with the breathing. So to lie there, having a observant of the thoughts, and seemingly designed as some sort of attack to induce fear, right? Uh, the induction of fear is an interesting concept. Charles Manson, actually, apparently, uh, part of the story of the Manson lore was this idea that um, Charlie initially was showed up to the home on Cielo Drive, uh, perhaps, and I've forgotten the story, but at a certain point, people who had knowledge of the event said that, it was to induce fear in Terry Melcher, who was like an A&R man for a record company. And, you know, Charles Manson had all of these records and songs that he had written, and records that he wanted to make, and in fact lived with the Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys for a time, um, who I believe recorded at least one of Manson's songs, if I'm remembering correctly. And so lying there in the back seat of the Versa, something akin to a fetal position, like a half fetal position, I guess. And, understanding that in observance of what the body was doing, the increased heart rate, whatever hormones are being released, and, to control the breathing, to not give in to the impulse to draw in even one full deep breath. The only way out is through style. And if you take notice, if the listener takes notice of the thumbnail, the advertisement for what I believe to be a video game, Fallout 4, if memory serves. Memory serves. Break free, to break free from fear, to break free from spiritual attacks of this realm. And the realm itself, representative of spiritual attack. A weapon, a collection of weapons formed against symbolic representations of what I am. So if there's a team here, if there's a royal we here, that old Benton, the performer in the context of the performance, is interested in aligning his self with, would it not be that which this realm takes aim at? And there's something in Benton's spirit and personality that's always responded quite favorably to being targeted and aggressed upon. Is that a word? By outside entities, typically humans, whatever that is, and then, at a certain point, demonic forces and entities, after years ago receiving baptism in the Holy Spirit. And we are prayed up today, of course, not out of obligation, but because power must first be accessed by the individual in order to achieve anything whatsoever in this place. Go for the gusto. Why not go for the gusto? What is preventing the individual from entering into themselves and unblocking whatever blockages are actively being created through the subversion of the creative force, to uncover the power that may very well lie within? And then back to fear as a mind virus or a mind killer. Well, what if other people are doing this and they find power? And what if I move all these blockages out of the way and there's no power there? It's to suspect that the individual is always found lacking, and that is to treat blessing as curse. For this is the realm of the lack of the qualities that what I am embody in this delusory realm. So to be an individuated being within this delusory realm, possessed of the Nancy Pelosi MS-13 spark of divinity, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, is to know and understand and accept that blessing is there no matter what. And once uncovered, must be treated as blessing. So the curse represented by this place, it's no longer an option to engage in the so-called pleasures of the flesh, because the moment the mission begins to be about bringing forth blessing, truth, life, creation consistent with what I am, well, now the being can never fit in with the silly little humans, because silly little mundane human endeavor is tied up and one big spider's web ball of confusion of keeping up with the Joneses, worshiping the national religion via consumerism, um, the so-called pleasures of the flesh. So by definition, the being properly identified can no longer fit in to society, which, as most truthers will acknowledge, society is trash anyway. But then, with these fears around, well, how will I earn a living? How will the being access resources? How will the being do this? How will the being do that? How will the being's family receive him? Well, they won't, according to the Bible. The Bible says people will turn against each other. They won't. Oh, man. Not accepted. Yeah, how's that working out for you, being accepted in a vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions? How's that working out? Because if you're coming to this channel listening to these discourses, right? Would a person, and this is not to accuse or make anybody feel some type of way, meanwhile, Benton doesn't have that power, but to come here and listen to this and to listen to other YouTube content all day, as I do, is that not some tacit acknowledgement of not fitting in and not being accepted anyway? Right? And then I've left a lot of meat on the bone. So let's see if I can go back and pick up some of these threads. And the question is how, right? I see all of these ideas, people looping into problem solving in YouTube comments. And the first thing Benton thinks now is how? Oh, well, here's, do this, do that. How? How? Okay, Benton. Fear is the mind killer. Great. How does the individual deal with that? Oh, I'm glad you asked. Would be happy to assist any individual's endeavors, because what I am always seeks to be useful and provide utility and support the beings in the vicinity. And when properly identified, based on not what this realm teaches love to be, for this realm doesn't know what love is, and certainly doesn't want it to be shown, which reminds me of a song. Another mockery. And this idea that the recording industry is satanic, and that, back in the day, especially the actual recordings themselves, the physical media was apparently, cursed and charged with, is there such thing as demonic energy? Perhaps that's what's, life force that's been sucked away from, vampirically sucked away from a being such as myself or yourself. Now we're back to the movie The Matrix in some way, right? And the individual, when the proper processes of bootstrapping, of course, in a non-dogmatic, way, not attached to religion, cults, or dogma, right, rises to a level within themselves, then the spiritual warrior genius within, and Benton claims this level of attainment within this place. Well, Benton takes his time, lays back, and observes society and the silly little humans reacting and responding and interacting with a concept like Charlie Kirk, or perhaps 9/11, because Benton listened to some Stuttering John content whereby people now earn their livings running YouTube channels mocking and ridiculing Stuttering John Melendez, formerly of the Howard Stern Show and the Tonight Show. And John himself made a 9/11 reference in the material that was being reviewed, and John, of course, being made sport of with the kick me sign on his back and the little spinner hat sucking his thumb and the ball on the string with the paddle, doop, 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 doop. And that's the position that this realm obsessively seeks to put the individual in, to be treated that way, based entirely upon representing blessing. See, now, not suggesting that Stuttering John is any version of bringing forth blessing, but to those folks, John is a blessing, certainly. From their perspective, representative of blessing, so they're mocking and ridiculing him. Interesting. It's almost as if Benton has discovered sort of a form of interaction, almost a technology, right? And isn't the claim that all of this technology is, in fact, seeming to rapidly, grow and evolve over time, but maybe the technology has developed at such a high level already, and it's just been rolled out, over time, and continues to be rolled out over time, perhaps. So now it's completely fine when Carl, who is the main guy on Who Are These Podcasts, well, he made what would have been an extremely inappropriate joke about 9/11 if it had occurred, I would say, anytime within the year after 9/11. And meanwhile, now enough time has passed, seemingly, time, space, location, place, that the entire crowd erupted into laughter. So in some way, intelligence is to be able to observe a cultural transformative phenomenon such as 9/11, and to then imagine and then to juxtapose and compare and contrast that with the phenomenon of Charlie Kirk, but see, while observing the reactions and responses while still very close to the Charlie Kirk event. Now, again, the general public having no memory, have folks forgotten the social pressure that was applied across the board, cutting through all political barriers after 9/11, so much so that one of my favorites to watch on television, Phil Donahue, because he was willing to stand on his own principles and not support the Iraq War and the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan, lost his lucrative CNBC show. I believe it was CNBC, could have been MSNBC, don't remember exactly. One of the two. And the man put his principles ahead of his pocketbook. Well, that's not a good thing for an entertainer to do. They say entertainer. I thought, well, no, he's certainly not a journalist. Who is? Right. Sam Hyde and iDubbbz, Ian Jamha, if anybody knows who these folks are, they're just as much a journalist as Phil Donahue was. All right. Timely reference, sir. Well, thank you. Because that was the pressure, and the entire nation, marching behind the support of the president, the entire, Congress united across partisan lines. And then some may say, well, that's not happening here, right, with the Charlie Kirk thing. Well, it always comes down to what suits the system. See, the system, in order to perform certain tasks and achieve certain objectives, apparently needed the populace to be more in sync, right? But we see similar mechanisms whereby now there's pressure to properly mourn Charlie Kirk. Well, why is Benton the only one out here saying, well, yeah, it sounds like North Korea, where when Kim Jong-un, the present leader, apparently, when his daddy passed away, the commoners in North Korea knew that they had to take to the streets for days and weep openly, because if they did not properly mourn the passing of the dear leader, not only would they be put in a political prisoner camp, two more generations of their family, a total of three generations, so their children as well as their parents, off, or maybe it's their grandparents and their parents. Either way, not sure. No expert on North Korea here. Thank you for liking the stream. I do appreciate it. Boy, y'all are wonderful to Benton. I can always count on a proper listener to like ratio. Now I know I was onto a good discourse there, but I have been going through some issues with my feet, my unwashed feet, and I understand that particularly the haters that come to this channel, they love it when I discuss feet, especially uh, the serious toenail fungus that's taken over both of my big toes for years now. And so what happened yesterday was Benton waged war against the fungus for an entire about 35 days in a row. I averaged about an hour a day in the with off the charts UV index here in Southern California, and took off my shoes, subjected myself to potential embarrassment with my discolored toenails, and let the UV rays hit them. And in fact, the original plan was 2 straight months, but then it didn't really seem like the UV was having the intended effect, so I stopped after about 35 days, as memory serves. Maybe, probably 5 full weeks, I would say. And then in the time subsequent, perhaps more damage was done than originally realized. So there's been, you know, in some way, it's obvious now that the much damage was done to the fungus, and of course, the fungus having taken over, the matrix is what it's called, the nail matrix, and that's where the fungus is the strongest, and then completely colonizing the nail, right? And then some of that spilling over into the actual skin around the nail, and then we get into misshapen nails, right? And are they going to grow back properly? And then if the fungus really comes under attack, and this happened to me a few years ago, like the top half of one of my nails just completely fucking came off, right? And this introduces the possibility of infection as well as ingrown toenails. So about an hour was spent yesterday, um, using a torch to uh, kill the germs on just a metal fucking fingernail file to dig all up in this toenail, right? Oh, interesting. We went from 6 to 8 to 5 on the stream. It's almost like the haters said, "Well, fuck this. We're not listening to him talk about his toenails." Meanwhile, I'm not bothered by any of these graphic descriptions. Doesn't bother me in the least, right? But now that I'm on this, and I want to talk about this. What's funny is that I control myself and don't talk about my fucking feet, because for some reason, old Benton here has wanted to see a certain number of viewers and a certain number of likes. Well, we've learned, or in a certain number of views rather. When we've seen over the weekend, old Benton certainly got the message loud and clear. Hey, buddy, the majority of the people that listen to your broadcasts want to see you treat blessing as curse. They want to see you attacked, right? And this is, something to do with the internet in general, to mock, ridicule, and make sport of somebody. So yes, I am intentionally talking about things that I know a decent portion of the audience can't stand, and I'm doing it on purpose. Oh, that doesn't sound Christian. That doesn't sound loving. Hey, not my problem. I don't give a fuck how it sounds. People have the freedom to click off the stream, don't they? If they choose to stick around, they say, well, maybe we'll miss an opportunity to ridicule. What's up, Joe Moore? Peace and respect, Benton in chat. It's been a peaceful morning indeed, sir. So yesterday, uh, more or less performing my own podiatry on my foot, and it's painful, right? Painfully, and certainly made some progress on preventing, um, making it much less likely for ingrown toenails. And if anybody's ever had a proper ingrown toenail, quite painful. And Benton does a lot of walking, and in fact, Benton's favorite thing to do in a lot of ways is walking or hiking, rapid, brisk walking. And very good for the mind, very good for the digestion, very good. People talk about working out and all of this. Realistically, I've learned through a lot of fitness and a lot of busting my ass working out. Brisk walking is the best exercise there is, but quickly, briskly, right? Not a saunter. Move it, move it, move it. And well, now what's happening is I use iodine to avoid infection. So now I've gotten a little lackadaisical because the way the toenails have been grown up with the fungus, it's almost been like a protective layer, right? Uh, and the dirt also, the unwashed feet serves as a protective layer in a way. So now there's going to be more, you know, uh, regular application of iodine. Going to have to not, if I want to jump out of the car and maybe go throw something in the trash can, no more wandering around barefoot, even briefly, right? The inconvenience of these things. But it looks like I got in there enough. There's some white showing. Maybe the because what happens is when the fungus dies, apparently, eventually probably the toenail falls off, and then it takes like a year to grow back a proper toenail. So maybe that's going to happen. Who knows? And really, no need for suggestions in the chat. And so, the practice of averaging 45 minutes to an hour a day of exposing one's feet, and remember the feet, that level of UV does damage, and then my skin is just about as white as possible. So, just even dealing with, not burning the tops of my feet and all of this. And then the embarrassment of people are wandering by looking at my feet, right? And my discolored toenails. But then in Benton's world, this says something about the warrior spirit, perhaps. Well, oh, this fungus thinks it's going to invade my toenails. Well, yeah, maybe it is. But maybe one day that fungus, which certainly would have intelligence, and I've learned a lot about fungus through this process. And if you think you don't have fungus on your body somewhere, yeah, you probably do. Again, thank you for liking the stream. Oh, have they returned? We're back to 8. Have they returned to see if he's done talking about his feet yet? Are they back? It's like, yeah, man, even if it doesn't work, right? Because the fungus knows how to protect itself by using the nail to shield the strength of its army, having seized control of the nail bed and the nail matrix, right? And as bad as mine's bad enough where typically a podiatrist would be like, okay, we got to just remove this nail and then kill the fucking matrix, and then your body, will recreate it. And then, with the malabsorption and the chronic illness of the last however many years, I can see now that this only really happened in the first place because of my what's been a very strong immune system historically had become weakened enough, and also poor circulation, in conjunction with poor circulation. Um, and then going into truck driving and not walking 10 miles a day as I did for many years. So in some ways, the walking 10 miles a day every day for years, that probably masked a lot of these digestive problems, and then helped with the circulation, right? But it's like, oh, well, fuck, this fungus is like, fuck your couch, fuck your toenail. Okay, well, how about 35 straight days of off the charts, UV index? I got to where I was Googling what is the UV index, because I like to do this earlier in the day, and some days I had to wait until in the afternoon because the UV was too low, right? And people are like, oh, cancer, this and that, and oh, wear sunglasses. I don't wear sunglasses. You know why? The sun's good for your eyes. And in fact, these fucking eyeglasses, excuse me, now I'm getting irritated. Cranky old man in the morning, back to centered. Uh, I put my, at the risk of damaging my glasses, I take them off and put them in my pocket as I walk around in the sunlight, because just making sure to get sunlight in my eyeballs every day has improved my vision. Right. Yeah. How about you? Oh, they've left again. The three people who can't tolerate the hot, stinky, warm, moist foot talk have left yet again. This is fun. It's a fun game. This is a fun game. Meanwhile, the foot talk never would have happened had I not looked down at 6 viewing and 1 likes. They say, oh well, Benton talks about being one with this force, and what he is, doesn't know anything about resistance or punishment, and yeah, that's true. But I mean, this is the performer in the context of the performance, in the context of a vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions, a place that makes an enemy of what I am, and subjected to, whether I like it or not, subjected to mockery or ridicule on an ongoing basis. So, in that context, what's the difference? What is the difference, folks? And the quickening spirit is always able to vibrate ever quicker and rise above anyway. So, this Christian notion of a lowly, wretched, sinning creature that must perform based on checking of boxes and living up to an ideology or a performative series of rules in order to absolve oneself and to prove one's worthiness. Well, that sounds like what old Benton here is seeing in society right now with this Charlie Kirk, and what Benton observed just after 9/11. Meanwhile, it's however many years later, almost 25 years later, and it's completely fine to mock and ridicule and make sport of not just stuttering John, but also 9/11. And in 25 years, it will be completely fine to make fun of Charlie Kirk, just like it's completely fine to make fun of JFK and MLK's assassination, as well as RFK Sr., right? It's completely fine to make jokes about all of this. Oh, but Benton's been talking about Charlie Kirk's death force flowing out his neck, because Charlie Kirk liked to go to college campuses and talk out the side of his neck. And I mean from the perspective of the college students. Meanwhile, old Benton has stood outside of a Walmart supercenter in what would be considered a very conservative area and just declared to the crowds, flowing in and out of the supercenter, well, hey, the best way to raise a child is in a home with a father born a man and a woman born a mother. And I just shut the fuck up and watch people freak out and lose their shit. Right. And so back to the spiritual development, it's the internal bootstrapping to be able to interface with all of this, you know, at a level of honesty, and to be real with oneself authentically, and to say, yeah, that's right. Nobody gave a flying fuck about Charlie Kirk except some weirdos. There was some weirdos in society, and I don't mean the so-called right. There were some people, and even Chalk Bozo offline, I managed to make it through only a few minutes of his recent stream. Check him out at Chalk Body Outline. I'll probably share the stream on my post tab. I'm sure it's interesting, but it took no less than 15 minutes to devolve into schizo truthering, such as, oh, somebody posts in the chat that so the hosts, one Drew Barrymore, aka Chalk Body Outline, aka Drew World Order. This guy's got more names than a member of the Wu Tang. And his co-host for their, if you want to call it a podcast, outlining our enslavement going back many years, if not more than a decade, Enslaved by Truth, aka EBT. They were really vibing and having what could have grown into a really, profound conversation. But oh, we've got Bozo schizo-truthering, and Drew, I can't blame him. I fail to control myself with respect to reading the chat at times. Because somebody in the chat points out, I believe it was that donut character, if anybody knows who this is, who apparently looks kind of like Drew, points out that apparently George Floyd and Charlie Kirk have the same birthday. Right? Who cares? But and then EBT got excited enough, and now it's the loop into schizo-truthering, which Benton has looped into a lot of schizo-truthering. And boy, howdy, it was almost all day, every day, looping into schizo-truthering during the fake pandemic. Or just the pandemic's kind of the same meaning by now, right? Because even the normie, even Stuttering John was talking about, and here's where the Stuttering John 9/11 reference comes in. It's 25 years later now, and Stuttering John on his own podcast is talking about how Bush flew the Bin Laden family out of the country when all the flights were supposed to be grounded just after 9/11, right? I mean, whatever that means, society's come full circle, has it not? Hey, 6-3, okay. I'm the three though, so remember I'm losing the game. Now it's 7-3. Would y'all kick an extra point? What's going on there? I'm out here kicking field goals. My ancestors had the hands of an my famous ancestor had the hands of an all-pro NFL wide receiver. That's 6 points, not 3 points, partner. 42 touchdowns. Come on now. Shout out to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. What is this? And so back to Sam Hyde and iDubbbz, and without getting into the entire lore, Sam Hyde now represents the right wing to a lot of these youngsters, millennials, and some Gen Z, with a lot of Christ is King mentions in his comments these days, and Sam Hyde behaving less like a comedian and artist these days, and more, more like a leader of a faction, like Gavin McInnes with the Proud Boys, perhaps. So, and then I listen. What I say is the best show on the internet is Kino Casino. It's on Kick, but there's a YouTube channel. I forget. Is it just Kino Casino? Kino Casino Clips, and they make sport of iDubbbz, who has millions and millions of subscribers and made millions and millions of dollars. And he got married to iDubbbz married this Anissa Jamha, and he took her name. And then at a certain point, she's completely indoctrinated him into this leftist cuckery, right? So now Ian represents some version of, whatever this Charlie Kirk shooter and his boyfriend, right, or a trans person would represent. And Ian himself is pretty much, now we're just all waiting for him to transition, right? And, he's being domineered over by his wife and all of this. And, seems to enjoy it, right? Seems to perform enjoying these humiliation rituals. So I was listening to Kino Casino this morning and their content, and Ian was responding to the Charlie Kirk thing from the leftist perspective, and also not having to concern himself with being canceled because he's already canceled himself, because he can't even earn a living from content anymore, and he squandered his fortune. So even though he has millions of subscribers, he's turned his back on why the people subscribed in the first place. And he did a podcast called something like "My Wife Ruined My Life" or "Ruined My Career" or whatever, and which got almost no views. And I think they finally quit doing it. So Kino Casino got big in a way partially by just doing reactions to this podcast. But so Ian said, or iDubbbz said, and I wrote this down, I would like to discourage white people from seeing themselves in Charlie Kirk. Meanwhile, I had noticed that Sam Hyde is on episode 10 of his Sam Hyde podcast. He started it a couple of months ago. And the thumbnail is a picture of Sam Hyde's face, and it says on the thumbnail, "This is you," and then you click the video, and it's Sam Hyde showing a picture of Charlie Kirk talking to his white audience of younger folks, young compared to me, and the first words out of his mouth is, "This is you." Right. So is it really necessary to loop into schizo-truthering to see what's going on here? Right. And the American people, if the left is arguably a bunch of communists and Marxists, collectivists, with all of this feminism and gender studies and, LGBTQ plus and all of that, which bothers me, you know, uh, not that much, because why would it bother me? Because now I see the so-called right is now performing, although they don't understand that they're performing this. I'm now observing the people who think they're conservative seem to be performing some version of a communist revolution, or at least a cultural revolution, which makes Benton think, well, isn't that the history of America, a series of cultural revolutions? And is this not a cultural revolution? Again, thank you for clicking the like. Not that any of this is going to amount to a hill of beans. And there's 10 people here because instead of talking about his foot fungus, he's back on making actual points. But then remember, the ever-present mockery and ridicule of this realm that makes an enemy of what I am. And in fact, that's the entire reason it exists in the first place, via subversion of the creative force of what I am. You think Jack Talcott exhibits a high propensity for self-aggrandizement. You ain't seen nothing yet, partner. I can't quite do the fake laughter, but losing that ability these days. You're welcome, and this is why I deserve donations. This is why Benton deserves to have access to resources. But everybody does. Doesn't every human deserve access to resources? Well, not in the context of a vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions that makes an enemy of what I am, because it's not possible to have a respectable country when the working class allows the authoritarian government and the authoritarian corporate structure and the banking system and the financial system to limit the resources of the working class in order to perform what? Something that was once LARPing as capitalism. And meanwhile, there's now a video on my post tab showing just how foolish the Ozzie and Harriet version of America was. That cultural revolution, that was a cultural revolution. The nuclear family, right? The loving, doting, calm, placid wife that the man who society at the time, for its own purposes, Moloch's machine at the time, said, okay, working man, off to the factory, off to the office job, and then we've got what you want, sir. We know what you respond to is this loving, doting wife at home raising your well-behaved, well-adjusted, right, children. Okay, and then so that they can grow up, the daughter can grow up into a version of the mom, and that the son can grow up into a version of the father. And so what America has done is it's romanticized these ideas as if, well, the people back then, they were just better people. No, they were the exact same as the people of today. Because otherwise, how would it have been possible for every single social problem that's present today that's not directly related to technology was fully fomented by 1960, including urban decay / urban air quotes renewal. Because remember, this system of things, the vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions, it knows when it builds up the industrial area of a city, it knows that it's also going to destroy that industrial area to make way for whatever the next phase is, right? Which is why Benton drove an 18-wheeler not once but twice into an old factory probably built in the 50s or the 30s or the 40s. Hell, maybe it was built during World War II. I don't fucking know. And well, they had a power outage. So here's Benton with an 18-wheeler parked on the side of the street near the Memphis Pyramid, right? And just there, not getting paid because it's piecework. And Benton and 20 other rigs, and I'd never been there, so for all I know, this is normal. So Benton walks a mile to go check in, and only to be told, "Oh, our power's been out since yesterday." And then, okay, well, whatever. I'll let the company know. And the company, a person in an office, well, they don't give a fuck that I'm here, and they know, if they know their job, well, they know that the likelihood of me actually, and I'm supposed to be preloaded. See, it's supposed to be a dropping hook, and part of how trucking companies attract a driver like myself who's safe, picks up and delivers on time, and doesn't damage the equipment and doesn't crash into shit, right? Doesn't back into other people's tractors, right? And it also helps the dispatchers make their bonuses. Every company I've worked for, at a certain point, they let it slip that I'm pretty much number one driver, or right up there. And they mean based on not taking home time, working 7 days a week for months on end, and picking up and delivering on time, and not crashing into shit, and not getting tickets, and not failing inspections. Although occasionally, it's not like I've never failed an inspection, but it wasn't because of like, oh, I failed to maintain the hours of service or whatever. It's usually equipment. Well, it's always been equipment, but not getting speeding tickets, not getting pulled over for speeding. And in a proper society where workers demanded proper working conditions, and when workers were willing to access and wield power, I would be able to say, hey, company, I can talk to these people, and it's obvious there's 0% chance of me leaving here with a load today, so I'm driving to the truck stop, and I'm going to take a shower. Well, okay, well, I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do at the truck stop, and then that'll give y'all time to figure out where do you want me to go to pick up a load. Well, because I'm dumb enough to work for free, and because workers won't demand that I must be paid for my time, because workers have no power, well, the company is now incentivized to just wait it out. So the company waits all day, but now here comes the pressure, because remember, Benton drives at night as much as possible, which means Benton wakes his happy ass up at midnight, does his morning routine, and then hits the road jack. So the dispatchers can never psychologically understand that the way I'm able to drive safely beginning at midnight, sometimes as early as the same day, 10:30 p.m., is I go to sleep about 2 p.m., 3 p.m., right? Which means if y'all don't put it in your computer somewhere, or put a Post-it note, dispatcher, on your, or if I don't call and remind you, then it gets to be near 5 o'clock, and the dispatcher wants to go home, except the fleet manager's like, hey, what about this truck? It doesn't have a load assigned to it. And now they talk me into leaving my safe parking spot at the trucking stop, driving an hour in a monsoon, literal monsoon, Memphis is subtropical, to go pick up a load. And remember, I'm supposed to be asleep. But I was relatively new with this company, still proving myself, see. And this is part of Benton's value as a truck driver. Meanwhile, the American people prefer foreigners who don't speak the language and who are a danger to the families that everyone claims to have love for, right? Because I know when I drive down the road intellectually that's in the, the Dodge Caravan van, that's somebody's family, right? My brain knows that. The rest of me don't give a flying fuck about the welfare and the lives of your beloved family. What Benton cares about is that there's a permanent record. And Benton knows that as a truck driver, if he thinks he's going to take an entire year off and then apply for jobs and get hired literally the next day, he's got to keep his nose clean. So is it a coincidence that here Benton is, never been medicated, never been through the mental health system, no criminal record, and a clean motor vehicle record and a valid CDL? Is that a coincidence? Right? I think not. It's called self-serving. It's called selfish. Oh, well, oh, wait a minute. Cue up the fear, guilt, and shame, sir. How dare you put yourself first? And the individuals who comprise the mass of workers in this country are treated with fear, guilt, and shame if they ever suggest that they could be selfish enough to stay the fuck home for the next month until the other workers figure out to stay the fuck home. And it's probably going to take damn near a year for the worker to pull their head out of their ass and say that's right. Because things are already bad. They've been bad enough my entire life. Right. Oh, but the Moloch's machine having installed the psychology into the individual's brain and having the system having achieved complete total domination and control of the psychology of the masses, it understands that these people can't stay the fuck home. So what was the pandemic? Well, it was a lot of things. In some ways, it was to mock and ridicule and say, oh, they'll stay home if what they view as strong authority tells them to stay home. Meanwhile, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, Nancy Pelosi's MS-13 spark of divinity. But they will treat their blessing as if it were a curse because they won't choose to stay home. To do what? Garner and wield and access power in this place. And this place is expert when it comes to the wielding of power. It knows everything there is to know about power dynamics. It knows everything there is to know about all forms of death, including money. Again, on some level, the pandemic was to mock these people who refuse to wield power in a realm that only, on some level, only responds to displays of power, assertions of power, manifestations of power, starting to sound like power in the name of the Lord Christ Jesus, now ain't it? And if that's Benton's primary interest in Christ and Jesus Christ as Lord of Benton's internal space, well, if Benton Power Man 5000 or whatever that is, if Benton Power Man 5000 is way to an 80% power level, well, that ain't quite spiritual warrior genius now, is it? 75% power level. Well, how you going to get that other 25%, partner? Well, we're going to need that Holy Ghost. We're going to need the resurrection of the risen Christ within me. See? It's self-serving. But what does this inverted realm say? It talks about serve Christ. Right? What? Christ says, I no longer call you servant. I call you friend. Which seems to me like Christ will probably serve me just as much as I'll serve Christ. But where is the service of Christ? Not in this vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions where no meaning can possibly be found. And individually, there's absolutely no power to be accessed. And that's not correct. There is power to be accessed if the being is willing to serve this realm. And the prince of the power of the air, spiritual wickedness in high places, the so-called God of this world, yeah, there is power accessible. Right? But it's not real power. It's a dead form of power. I'm talking about accessing the living power within. And it ultimately, outside of the context of delusion, it's to bring forth blessing at all times consistent with one's own nature, Mr. Beale. Meanwhile, the movie Network from 1976, when inflation was off the charts, just a couple of years before all-time high gas prices, as Gen Z and the younger millennials blame everything on the boomers like the boomers had it easy. Well, go watch that 1950s. Go watch that video about the 1950s. Because see, boomers, Gen Z and millennials have no concept that, well, yeah, I mean, probably boomers, like my boomer parents had it good to some extent when they were young, sure. But they weren't really allowed to deviate until what? The Cultural Revolution of the late 60s. And people talk about the 60s and think they mean peace and love. That was really the 70s. And my father grew his hair out, saved up his fucking paper route money. And his dad said, well, no, you can't have a bass guitar. And my dad said, watch me. and saved up his money and uh, drug his little red wagon down to the music store and came home with a Rickenbacker bass, apparently. That was later ruined by temporary homelessness. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. And I'm sure my father blames me for that. Weren't my fault, sir. I was trying not to die at the time. Meanwhile, what I am will never know death. So that was, and again, I didn't. All I knew, Benton knew, was that he almost killed himself through abusing alcohol. And then when the organ said, "Well, I guess this motherfucker really is going to kill us, so time to die." In those moments, Benton was like, "Well, fuck it. I guess I'll just go ahead and choose life for whatever reason." Is this train spotting motherfucker choose life? And didn't even know why I was choosing life. Well, it was because of the spirit of what I am. And, had I passed out of this, left this realm, it would not have been appropriate because now the reward of unlocking the achievement within the game, within the world of death and the game of lies of true knowledge of self. See? And when you see the mockers and the ridiculers and the spiritual attacks of this weekend, including a pea bombing, well, that's what they're attacking, is that audacious spirit that has the audacity to perform in these ways. And that's if anybody's attracted to Benton, as a personality, other than the comic nature and the ridiculous performance, is it not that the realness, the authenticity, the manifesting truth, which are people can't resist it. It's powerfully attractive. See, children see me walking in the park and make a break for me. This happens. I've multiple times walked into a Walmart supercenter, saw the head of a toddler spin around, and they take off in my direction at full motherfucking speed. That's not because of Benton necessarily, although that's part of it. It's that the child in its spiritually perfected state knows when it sees its own reflection. And it knows when it sees these bozo males, it doesn't see itself reflected. Because the bozo males, who I won't call men, are so strongly identified with this realm that the baby don't want nothing to do with them. See, the toddler don't want nothing to do with them. I had one in the park fall on his face, literally. Actually, it was a girl. A little girl fell on her face trying to climb down the steps quick enough to intercept me as I walked through the park. And then got up and still headed my way. And if I hadn't quickened my pace, would have walked over and just wrapped itself around my lower leg. No bullshit. Right? Y'all got it like that? I said, well, yeah, my niece is my... No, I don't... stranger danger, motherfuckers. What are you talking about? But thankfully, these people out here know that that a 2-year-old can't be in trouble. Where I'm from, that would have been a whooping. Stranger danger. Spank the bottom. Now it's a placid, calm, peaceful environment in the park. Now we got a screaming child because the parent just beat it. Meanwhile, it's 2025. How is it legal to hit anybody, least of all a child? If that doesn't tell you everything that you need to know about this place you find yourself in, I don't know what would. It's legal and actually encouraged to spank a 2-year-old. Are y'all crazy? I say, oh, well, Benton, you've never had children. What do you know about it? Well, I've been parented, so yeah, I know it. I know it from the perspective of having been parented. Some of y'all have forgotten that experience and only really understand it from oh, well, it's annoying, and what, you'd be the same, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, if I had popped out a kid at the age of 20 like both my sisters, I'm sure I would have been. Not at this age. Not by the time I was 35, I wouldn't have. Check the time. I'm still debating on whether I want to go do my laundry or not this morning. I still have I got one pair of clean drawers. We'll let y'all make the decision. I am a bit of a gambler, so we'll let y'all decide. Token donation within the next little while, or we'll wrap it up. It's the honor system. I guess I could just choose myself anyway and lie about it, right? But I do like to roll the dice. So Cash App, Venmo, down there in the description. Going to need a token or a pledge. If anybody says, well, I can't use Venmo or Cash App, it's like, well, you can at some point go and buy an Amazon gift card. It's as good as cash in my world. Of course, that would be a higher, the token could be $2 if you use Cash App or Venmo or whatever, you know. But Benton got to get paid like everybody else, see. Until Benton actually is able to live a little closer to the teachings and the example of Jesus, right? Until then, I'm going to need at least a token gesture. So I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm pretty sure I know which way this is going with only 9 viewings. So actually, I'll change my mind. I'm changing my mind because I do want to cover the rest of these notes. But I'll cut off that part of the discourse and say, if there had already been a token donation, I would probably be inclined to continue on in that vein, right? And I think I'm going to wait. So what do we got? We're still, yeah, we got time because I think around 7 a.m. my time, I'm going to wander over to have a yerba mate and charge my device because I'm a frequent shopper at this grocery store that has a seating area, but I feel obliged to support the business with my money. Right. Oh, and no dark chocolate this morning. That might be why I'm cranky. They have it on sale, which of course means that people stocked up on the 100%. These health food obsessed hipsters, right? Hipster doofuses. All of a sudden, there's 14 people here. Did the word get out that he's threatening? He's authoritarian. He's a tyrant. He's demanding things. That's interesting. How did that happen? Of course, we may be a little more closer to the normal start time. But yeah, I guess I'll abort that part of the discourse and move on to the notes, perhaps. Give me a moment, though. Let's think about what I was talking about. Yeah, the iDubbbz and Sam Hyde interplay and the Charlie Kirk stuff, and observing again this is cultural revolution, and people who believe that they're against communism are now performing some version of a you will atone, you will absolve yourself by performatively mourning Charlie Kirk in the proper fashion, and society will dictate what is a proper performance, and any improper performance will be punished by what? Cancellation. People have apparently lost their jobs, right? Here comes more fear, guilt, and shame. And what did Benton say? I think day of. I said, I don't give a fuck. I said, number one, I don't give a shit about Charlie Kirk. Number two, if he puts himself up as a loving family man, well, now you got a widow and 2 fatherless children. And meanwhile, Charlie Kirk, with a $12 million net worth, according to Google, what the fuck was he doing on a college campus in the first place? And then, similar to the JFK assassination, why was his wife and kids there? Because Benton watched a movie in the 90s called Higher Learning and understood, and also understood, well, there's Kent State and the Republican governor of California. Wait, Republican governor? What are you talking about? I thought it was a bunch of lefty liberals. Wait a minute, I thought Republicans and conservatives were all about free speech. Oh, I guess we've forgotten that the free speech movement of the 1960s was all Democrats and university students. And there were, the movie The Big Lebowski talks about, taking over campus buildings, occupying campus buildings, and demanding that the administration become less conservative. So let's tie that in with this 50s thing, where now, and we talk about, the Bible concept of families turning against each other, and all of this sowing of all of this division in society. Well, Satan, or antithesis, is certainly sowing a lot of division, because now you have Gen Z and some of the millennials blaming boomers, but you can't separate the bad from the good. So do you think Gen Z and millennials would accept a very repressive culture of the 1950s just to be able to pay their rent and live indoors and eat a meal every night and maybe be able to get married and have some children without working themselves into a frenzy and just stressed out to the max. Would they trade that and say, well, there, you can't transport, you can't go back to the 50s with those tattoos, partner? And you know what was controversial back then, and it's pointed out in the video, was these by a certain point, even and this was the Beat generation, right? So the Beat generation, the Beat poets, and Kerouac, Ginsberg, and starting to sound like another cultural revolution, and then that morphed into what? The hippies, right? So, and again, back to my father growing his hair out, you know, going and buying a bass guitar, joining a band, and then knocking my mother up. And, old Benton, a result of that, they get married, and here's old Benton born in 1975. But it's this idea of the Ozzy and the Harriet. Well, it's never actually true now, was it? Because that video points out that the people, they understood that in order to live up to the status quo and the social contract of the time, was that the wife behaved in certain ways. The father behaved in certain ways. The children behaved in certain ways. They dressed very specifically. In society, out in the public, everybody treated themselves in specific ways. This was what, there's a word for this, repression. This is a very repressive and oppressive society. So I've noted repression is always harmful to the individual. So even though it didn't show on the surface so much, maybe now Benton is accounting for the social problems that were fully present in society by 1960. And yeah, did it take longer to filter down to places like Arkansas? Perhaps. Although after the assassination of MLK and RFK, my dad still talks about how the blacks almost burned the town down, right? And then, so I grew up with a father who loved to constantly talk about black people burning the town down. And then I noticed at a certain point, well, white people sure do love to riot. They like to burn the town down over sports, whether that's a victory or a defeat, right? Especially in the upper Midwest. Michigan, anybody? Ohio, the daylight savings time riots. Anybody heard of this? Anybody know what this is? Well, no, of course not, because people don't historically follow the news cycle, and people historically don't have a memory. And the system says, well, yeah, it's great that you don't have a memory, but then now we're going to need you to follow this news cycle. So here's your smartphone, pretty please with sugar on top. Go ahead and become a cyborg and merge with this technology, which is exactly what has happened, right? Which is exactly what has happened. And apologize for demanding token donations. That's not appropriate. That's not appropriate. It's still, it could happen, but it's not appropriate. How silly of me. Demanding things in this fact, and not because of it's absolutely completely fine in the context of a YouTube channel and a live chat. It's not appropriate with respect to proper identification within a vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions. That's the level of inappropriateness. It's to treat this place as if it was somehow there was any possibility of redemption. There's nothing here of redemptive value whatsoever other than what I am, which is never lacking and therefore can never be in need of redemption. So is that perhaps why the individuals are treated as if they, in fact, no matter how ardent their efforts, they can't be absolved unless they go to a church or an organization to absolve them? And even then, well, we won't really know till the big feller signs off at the end of the experience. See, this is sick. This is twisted. This is demonic. Christianity is demonic, full stop, as is all religion. But I was only raised in the context of one religion. And they say, well, Jehovah's Witnesses ain't Christian. Well, none of them are Christian if you mean following the teachings of the Lord Christ Jesus. So what's the fucking difference? Bitch. Thank you for liking the stream. Much appreciated. And see, and here's a point I wanted to make, you know, the idea of needing something from the audience, well, that's a violation. If I need anything whatsoever from the audience, that's hypocrisy. Show me a human and I'll show you a hypocrite. And it's certainly unavoidable, at least at the present time, although Christ apparently managed to avoid it within the context of his performance. And Benton may very well get there. We'll see. If it's possible, old Benton will get there. Now, if Benton, let's say Benton actually just suited himself and said, well, I am wholly, completely self interested, and I'm just going to take my ball and go home, meaning I'm just going to shut my fucking mouth and wander off with my, my bedding in one of those green fucking army sacks, canvas, whatever they call that, duffel bag, and then my clothes in a backpack, all right, and just wander around and insulate myself as much as possible and remain in the peace of the morning, right? I just laid here for like an hour to see if there was going to be a BM, and there wasn't, but tomorrow's a new day. If I'm not promised tomorrow within this vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions, but most likely we'll wake up tomorrow, right? At least experiencing the little death and rebirth. If not the the what I am certainly will never experience a birth or a death. So is not this place in some way tied up with experiencing death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, right? And to be holy, but then what I am, the spirit of what I am seeks to be useful. And where is the utility in that? Right? And you could say, oh, well, just to advance and progress. Hey, that's already happened. Old Benton advanced and progressed and unlocked the achievement of true knowledge of self. There's really no reason to continue to isolate oneself for even more spiritual development. And that's what we see with the, society falling in love with self-development, self-improvement, you know, and, all of these things. But then that becomes its own sort of self-perpetuating cycle at a certain point. It's like, yeah, but then, hey, David Goggins, like at a certain point, isn't the job done? And that shows you how much trauma that fool is carrying around. And I don't mean fool, but, you know, if he's to be taken at his word out there running 200 miles in 65 hours or whatever, or 66 hours, interesting. 66, eh? And again, what to do what? To perform well enough to vibrate up out of here, right? What would happen if old Benton, enough consecutive delusory, now it's here, now it's gone, now it's here, now it's gone, the present moment, what if he did plausibly prove his ability to at least, and again, it's not possible to entirely separate oneself from society, even out in the cabin in the woods. Ted Kaczynski, he still had society going on in his mind and clearly had unresolved issues if that was a real person, going official fiction, right? And then again, not to threaten, but one day old Benton will disappear from this so-called truth community. And see, this is where the negative motivations come to bear politically. It's a completely negative motivation. It's not well, we think Republicans are awesome. It's that, no, people hate the guts of Democrats and vice versa. It's a completely negative motivation. So, to threaten to take my ball and go home, well, it's like Charlie Kirk. Nobody gives a fuck about Charlie Kirk and his family till Charlie Kirk is gone. Same thing with Benton, you know. If Benton is gone one day from this community and doesn't even consider it a community, maybe most people won't even realize this, but it's like, oh, we could have kept him around. Right? We chose to let him go. See? We chose to let him go. And, how peaceful and how, easy would Benton's daily experience be? Doing some version of not Bruce, but David Banner's from the TV show. He's just sort of wandering place to place with his duffel bag, right? And what would suit old Benton, and what would see this is where people could work together, and this is where the truth community shows itself, much like the general public. It will not access its powers. It will not marshal its resources. It will not circle its wagons because somebody somewhere has to have a shed in their backyard that they can run a extension cord to, install a damn window unit, and have proper internet, and let old Benton set up shop in there. And old Benton, who wants to take walks anyway, will figure out where to go on foot in the local area to go get whatever food he needs and to do whatever he needs to do. And he, instead of being a weirdo, wandering around as an unaccompanied weirdo, right? I saw somebody at a truck stop one time, and about my age, maybe a little younger, and dressed kind of like I dress, kind of similar footwear. He's probably on a road trip because this was in Arkansas when I was truck driving during the pandemic. And I looked at him, and I said, you could clearly tell he's by himself, and maybe he's got a family somewhere, but he probably spends most of his time by himself. And even I was like, look at this fucking bozo. Like, nobody wants this bozo around in the physical. Nobody wants to look at this. He's, physically attractive, trim, in shape, right? Well, now the homosexual alarm bells are ringing, right? But either way, whether that's the case or not, even if it's not, the performance of the activity, it's still gay, right? So back to the 50s, all of this Ozzie and Harriet Leave It to Beaver programming. Well, in some ways, because of the vestiges of those memories, it is kind of gay just to be out here by myself as a white dude with gray hair, trim, and not a criminal, not a drug user, not a drug abuser. It makes a little more sense when it's a drug addict, an intravenous drug addict my age, who's, in a fallen state and is just wearing whatever clothing they found, and has this beaten up backpack that he found somewhere, and then just has whatever items he found around town. This realm respects and honors that performance well beyond old Benton's performance. And yeah, in spite of the undiagnosed fake autism, Benton for some reason is aware of the general sentiment around, like, who the fuck is this? Like, what is like just like what is this? It's such a rare thing, you know. Imagine a Paul well, Paul probably does this, but imagine a except part of Paul Enslaved, if anybody knows who that is, at least when we see him on camera wandering around, he's like talking to people everywhere. Now I'm like in my thoughts most of the time, like trying to fucking, avoid talking to people, and they still try to talk to me. It's this bizarre thing. I think what would suit me as well as the community, could I pretty please with sugar on top, just make content. And like we saw, it's a 24-hour a day endeavor. When I was streaming, effectively every day for months on, for, hours a day for almost 7 days a week for months on end, that's a 24-hour thing between getting rest, making sure the food is there, making sure the supplies are there, whatever meditatively needs to occur, right? That's a 24-hour a day endeavor, like for real. And I'll happily do it. And yeah, the donos were not enough to support the thing. The donos for a 3-month period almost exactly ended up paying for the motel room itself, right? At this point in LA, not that it's basically impossible for somebody to no strings attached put me up somewhere. Now, I could absolutely be in somebody's living space right now. I'm subjected to their weirdness and find myself living some version of, if anybody remembers the movie The Big Lebowski, when, he's not paying the rent, and eventually the landlord's like, hey man, I'm going to need my pound of flesh. And next thing you know, it's, John Goodman and, I forget the name. I don't need it typed into the chat. I know the guy's name. But the guy that played Lebowski, They're, the only people, maybe one other weirdo in the, the performing space in Los Angeles watching this landlord do his interpretive dance. And that's a very LA thing. Like, that's a real thing. I've hung around LA enough to realize that. So yeah, I absolutely could entangle myself in something like that. But what I am can't do that. What I am could post up in somebody's backyard. Right. Oh, but what would the neighbors think? And the neighbors are going to catch sight of him, and they're going to become intrigued, and they're going to need the biography, and they're going to need to quiz and grill, and they're going to need to seek to connect with this phenomenon, and interpersonally relate to it, and eventually realize, well, it's a weirdo with a personality defect, and now we need to destroy it if possible. This is humanity, folks. What are you going to tell me? Anthropologist Benton, sociologist Benton, psychologist Benton, right? And to perform within the context of the vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions with an ability to decode all of this in real time, more or less, or at least on the slight backward, on the slight back end. What do y'all think I deal with on a daily basis? And I'm dealing with it far better than any of you individually are dealing with whatever you're dealing with on a daily basis. And I'll take the Pepsi challenge with your level of stress, your level of fear, your level of guilt, your level of shame, whatever psych meds you may be on, whatever psych meds you may have been on, whatever your mental health history is, whatever your criminal history is. See, and it's not a competition. I'm just saying my level of performance has risen above and will continue to rise above in spite of this vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions that makes an enemy of what I am. Do we have time to plausibly make it to the laundromat? No, we don't. You're in luck. There's not enough time to both prepare for the laundromat and then to physically get there in time, because if somebody has my machine, well, what am I going to do? It's not my machine, but I know that it works. I know that the filter works. I know that I can be reasonably assured of proper water that's not dirty and disgusting, right? And already has somebody else's soap in it. That's right, fella. Tell them all about it. If you hear the dog barking. And pretty soon going to be most likely back to truck driving, and just whatever, when it's laundry day, whatever truck stop I happen to find myself at, it's just, well, there's the machine, and let's just see what happens, right? Oh, well, he's actually going to take a shower. Well, it's just, let's go check out how disgusting the truck stop shower is. Yep, not the best. Oh, that's right. Well, uh, why bother with the shower shoes? We've already got the foot fungus. Maybe we can pick up an even more novel and interesting strain of fungi, perhaps. And then it's interesting, these hygiene obsessed right wingers, as disgusting as truck drivers can be, but a lot of them are. Some of them are certainly they're in that truck stop every day, scrub a dub dubbing. And I've known many homeless people that travel all around the country, and as long as they keep their clothes clean, they don't really stink. Isn't that interesting? It's this idea of ooh, gross. Well, I don't feel gross sitting here, right? Are there times when I smell my shirt and I'm like, yeah, time to change shirts? This one's gotten a little too ripe. Beyond that, do you really think that I can tell when I stink, right? But ooh, gross. And that's that 1950s, because it's to somehow be morally validated with the scrub a dub dub. Oh, God, cleanliness is next to godliness. Well, what good is the cleaned up, properly hygienic external when the internal space could not be more disgusting and repugnant. And that's what Benton's internal space used to be. So I suspect that's most of y'all's internal space. Oh, well, now here comes the fear, guilt, and the shame. See, if I actually wanted to motivate you people, I would understand to use fear, guilt, and shame. But then I would become less of what I am. Then I might fall into violation. And that's not an option, right? It can't be service via Benton makes himself less than what he otherwise would express as. And if the order of the day is dirty, fungus-ridden feet, so be it. What up, Rick? Already greeted you earlier. Thank you, person. I can't see your name. Spit and Fire. I think I know. I know you in a particular context. Thank you. You are a valued member of the channel. Much appreciated. And then I'm also realizing increasingly that when we look at the spiritual attacks of Sunday morning on the channel, that you know, a lot of these folks who want to come over here and hate on my streams, and I don't mean the person I'm responding to, certainly, they're more available on the weekend because they're off wage slaving during the week, right? And not saying that some of the folks here aren't wage slaving, because certainly they are, maybe working from home. But back to the American workers simply will not seize power and demand proper working conditions. They refuse. They won't do it. And this realm cannot respect anything but displays of power and money, which is the currency of death, right? And people, myself included, would like to have some resources. And the so-called truth community has resources beyond money, because the money's really, yeah, that's great. Thank you for the money, but old Benton needs a workspace where he's left the fuck alone and doesn't have to attend some version of the Big Lebowski scene every day and perform emotional labor, right? If I was going to do all of that, I would just go ahead and find some broad to manage. But then now we're back to, do I really need to start consuming calories and doing what would be required for my physical body at the age of 50 to be able to perform properly in the context of a relationship? No, not really. And here's the thing is, fellas, when they get real bitchy and start tripping, there's only one solution to that. There's only one way to solve that problem, buddy. And I've lost interest. No thanks. And now that I'm vibrating, and now my body's telling me, hey, this is not even appropriate, so move on, buddy. Move on, partner. Don't even go there. Don't even go there. And then I love all these fucking special forces bozos who've been in the podcasts and the media are one by one getting exposed as total frauds. And Sam Hyde, certainly he did predict a lot of that, actually. He's the one that pointed out that these are just complete fucking jackasses. And I like that this promotion of Joe Rogan as some ass-kicking fucking badass, and Sam Hyde, who would want to go on the Joe Rogan experience, and probably never will, but he at a certain point was like, basically like, I would kick Joe Rogan's ass. Well, he probably would. He's 3 times Joe Rogan's size. He probably would in a proper scenario. If they were in an enclosed area and Sam Hyde could just physically grab Joe Rogan, he probably would beat the fuck out of Joe Rogan, most likely. Or, let's say, have to absorb the punishment of one of those kicks. Yeah, Joe Rogan just kicked fucking Sam Hyde in the leg. Oh, wait a minute, Sam didn't go down. Oh, wait a minute, he's grabbed Rogan around the ribs, and he's just holding him like a baby now. Right. And it's a wrap. And I don't have a dog in that fight, certainly. It's just the things I think about. Again, And imagine having a proper streaming setup as I used to do reaction content. In real time, making these connections between iDub saying that, he hopes that white people don't, you know, what did he say? I wrote it down. He hopes white people, I would like to discourage white people from seeing themselves in Charlie. And it's, more or less the exact same time frame that Sam Hyde releases his latest podcast. And he begins the podcast by showing Charlie Kirk and says, "This is you," right? And people can't see the game. And then we got Chalk Body Outline. And, I tried to listen to it. But, and they managed to get off to a decent start. But then here's the loop into schizo truthering because somebody points out that George Floyd and Charlie Kirk share the same birthday. 10/14. Okay, well, there's your 44. 11 times 4. I mean, because, 10, 14. I can make an 11 and multiply by 4. Right? They say, well, that's not how numerology works. Says who? What are you talking about? Who said it has to be done in a particular way? Do you think with its surrealistic, with the waking dream surrealistic notions of unreality, do you think the mathematics of this place gives a fuck? Doubtful. Doubtful. Only in my dreams, as real as it may seem. It was only in my dreams. And then old Benton bebopping down the sidewalk to go get the eggs yesterday and passing a cafe with some millennials or Gen Z ladies, and a Whitney Houston song boots up right as I go by, and I'm like, oh, Whitney Houston, lovely. What a blessing. Rest in peace. And what would their assumption be about somebody like me, who for some reason I'm Mr. Peanut for the fucking man himself. Like I'm some sort of, half the time I'm treated like I might be some representation of the system. As a fucking, been homeless since 2012. All right, sleeping in a car, wearing the same clothes every day until it's time to, well, not the underwear and socks, but, changing my shirt every few days and wearing the same pants until laundry day. Ooh, gross. Well, whatever. I find the entirety of this realm to be ooh, gross. So what's the fucking difference, folks? The realm is gross. What's the fucking difference? All right, let's hit these notes, and I'm about ready for egg drink number 2, and then fuck off to start my day. But not. I started so early. Don't you fret. We got unlimited internet, and we got battery. Although it'd be nice if somebody bought my mate, and maybe enough for I might be willing to have some dark chocolate over there. Just give me the 90% instead of the 100%. Right? Limit the chocolate. God forbid the audience buy me a token yerba mate and a little bit of chocolate, right? While I do what? Charge my power bank because I couldn't charge it yesterday, so I can keep these phones charged. Why? Why do I even need to explain and justify this? I don't. Who cares? Do whatever you want. I've got enough. What I am is never not enough. So, anyway, I'm looking at these notes. They don't seem quite as important as they did before. Yeah, Americans seem to be performing a communist revolution. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the right wing making such, again, the mockery and the ridicule of this place, mocking and ridiculing the idea of right-wing fascists, now seeming to perform some version of a, whether it's strictly leftist communist or not, a collectivist cultural revolution, CCR, a collectivist cultural revolution. Does the system care if it's fascist or communist? Does it care if it's left wing or right wing? I doubt it. It's authoritarian no matter what. It's never not authoritarian. Every single one of us, whatever year we were born into Tarianism. The system dictates and you do what you're told. The system dictates, you do what you're told. The system dictates, you do what you're told. To be an American is to tolerate whatever the system dictates. See? And so the Charlie Kirk stuff, you know, under the North Korea idea of make sure to openly weep for enough days in a row to not have to be put in a political prisoner camp. Well, weren't Americans, wasn't one of the cultural revolutions of America to be this rugged individualism of John Wayne and swagger and just say, well, this is what I think about Charlie Kirk, and anybody don't like it, fuck them. That's their problem, right? Oh, but remember, the national religion is consumerism, and if folks they think they're gonna be right wing and maybe not serve evil as fully as the left wing or what they view to be serving evil. Meanwhile, of course, they're serving evil equally. If you think MAGA and Republicans are serving evil any less ardently than left wing and Democrats, you have lost your mind. Or did you ever have one? Because, to be told what to do and have a psychology installed and to be, sold to Moloch's machine by the parents from day one, why would your mind, and yeah, I'm talking to you, why would your mind work at a level of critical thinking effectiveness in conjunction with what you may very well be at the level of Nancy Pelosi's MS-13 spark of divinity? This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. And I have zero hope whatsoever that folks are going to figure it out, and that's okay. That's my own practice and struggle to maintain proper identification. So what causes Benton to improperly identify? It's not the strength of the delusion, although that's part of it. And I understand, I forget because I'm so strong. The problem is Benton is so fucking powerful and strong. And I don't mean what I am. I mean Benton, the performer, is so powerful and strong historically that I forget that other folks do lack courage. Other folks are fearful and cowardly and cowed and beaten into submission and, more prone to just go along with things, right? Than Benton. Even as when Benton was normie as fuck, he was leading more so than going along with shit. See. And I forgot to make the point about the 50s. It was this idea of, the slick back hair and the slick back hair and the kind of tough guy image, the Marlon Brando's where that came from, the Marlon Brando movie, whatever that was called, On the Waterfront or whatever the fuck it was, right? Again, another cultural revolution. How many cultural revolutions after cultural, whether mini or maxi, this seems to be a maxi one, how many is it going to take before the American people figure out, oh, well, it's a never-ending series of fucking psyops via cultural revolution, and look at these bozos. Well, when it was Ozzie and Harriet time, they Ozzie and Harrieted. When it was On the Waterfront time, they On the Waterfronted, right? When it was peace and love and hippy dippy, they went along with all of that. And at a certain point, to be accepted in society, the young males had to grow their hair out or they weren't going to be accepted. And that's part of Benton marching around with his military bearing and his short haircut. Meanwhile, I had longer hair. I cut it because the women wouldn't stop following me around in public, and that's a true statement. I intentionally went and paid for the only haircut I've paid for in probably 20 years, at least 15 years, because I couldn't go into a store without being mobbed as if I were famous. I went into Whole Foods the other day and got some prunes while I was there picking up some Amazon items. Thank y'all I did receive a very generous Amazon donation recently. So that would add up to a lot of tokens. So I better shut the fuck up and stop demanding my small amount of flesh when somebody gave me a larger amount. Thank you. But I already know at this point, I just move at top fucking physical speed because the moment I enter in the door, every female eye just immediately is trained upon me. Immediately. Oh my God, there's actually a man here. Holy shit. And they begin to physically position themselves to try to get into my area. So I just, as fast as fuck, I'm running at times. And I'm a fast walker. I'm going as fast as I can. And it's like I'm juking and jiving, right? It's like I'm making cuts on the fucking football field or whatever, or basketball was my sport. I'm cutting. I'm going the long way around, right? And this is where I appreciate some of the less attractive gals who may be, a bit dumpy of a figure, because they already know they don't have a chance. So I'm not dodging them, right? I go to the Target to get my eggs, and it's just normal fucking Hispanic people in there. They don't give a flying fuck. Yeah, the security immediately start watching me if they just don't realize that I'm in there all the time. Yeah, they do. Which is usually if there's security at the door, I make sure to make eye contact and I'm like, "Hey man, how are you?" Right? And then what happens a lot of times is they train these people in that want to be in management, or that maybe they're like the shift manager, and more often than not, as soon as they spot me, they start directly walking towards me to sort of kind of passively aggressively let me know that, hey man, if you think you're going to come in here and steal. Meanwhile, I have no criminal record, and you know, and in the hippy dippy store I go to, they've accused me of stealing 3 different times, and I've made a joke out of it at least twice, where all at one time the cashiers just burst into simultaneous laughter because I made a joke about it. And then one time I just made a joke of, um, said something about, I thought it was going to be the fourth time of me being treated like I was a stealing or whatever. Just, said it in some flippant, funny way. And it's ha 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 ha. Right? Hilarious. One time I had, there's no trash cans in there except in the bathroom. And I didn't want to leave out the front door and then throw it away and then come back, because I'm coming back in, but was done with my coffee and my chocolate bar. So I was going to the bathroom anyway. So I put the wrapper in the coffee cup and threw it away in the bathroom. Somebody went in there that works there and fished that shit out of the bathroom, took a picture of it, and texted it to the security guard, who, after I left, chased me down and confronted me and accused me of stealing. And I'm almost certain it was this one particular lady cashier who's younger and has flirted with me at times, right? And this is, again, for men that don't understand women, this is what women, not all of them, but this is in their fucking toolbox, right? And she's happy to join in the laughter when I make light of the fact that I've been treated like I was. Hell, I went in Vaughn's one time, and because I don't ever leave my backpack. Well, I didn't used to ever leave my backpack at the front of the store. And the problem is, if I go in the afternoon and I'm smoking pot, I'm just way too fucking stoned and off in my own world. And so next thing you know, the management is watching the cameras, and they've called to the security guard, "Hey, go chase that guy down and tell him he can't have his backpack in here." Meanwhile, so they're telling me that I can't have my backpack, and I'm like, now I'm autistically like, well, y'all better enforce it on everybody. Why am I the only one told he can't have his backpack? I know there's people in here with bags. Like, what is this, right? So now I either go there without a backpack, or I just leave the shit at the front door, and it's like, well, hopefully I remember to take it, and or nobody steals it. I mean, there is a security guard standing there, so I just put it at their feet usually. And this one lady, this nice black lady, probably from Long Beach, most likely. We've developed a rapport to some extent, and she was kind of just like confused why I was leaving the backpack. I was like, "Oh, they've chased me down in here before and told me I couldn't have my backpack." She's like, "Oh, really?" And I was like, "No, I know you wouldn't do that." Meanwhile, if they called her on the radio, hell, it might have been her, but it wasn't. But if they call her on the radio, what's she going to do? Because she's going to think, well, I might lose my job. So I'm going to go be very nice to this guy and explain to him that, hey, buddy, who do you think? You think you're a real person? Right? You think you're a real person? Au contraire. Yeah, okay, Americans performing communist revolution. Um, so the communist thing, it's like, it's not good enough to just not mistreat people of other races. The good commie must positively affirm and assert through their overt actions that they're in fact anti-racist. See, it's to perform as an anti-racist. So the Charlie Kirk thing is, it's not only to not denigrate his memory, one must now sort of laud and applaud and thoughts and prayers. And who did I see performing the thoughts and prayers routine? Um, Not Drew quite as much, but EBT on the recent outlining our enslavement. show, you know. EBT, I know you well enough. You don't give a flying fuck about that. You don't care, buddy. Why aren't you free to say I don't care? What's the fear? Who's who are you trying to garner? What are you trying to get out of it? You don't give a fuck. And he even noted later that he's like most people here didn't even watch Charlie Kirk. Maybe they saw a short here and there, right? Yeah, I'd heard the name. That was about it, right? Most people don't give a flying fuck. Oh, but now we got thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. What is that going to do? Somebody could have said, "Hey, man, uh, here's how much we love you, Charlie. We're not going to let you come to these college campuses, right? We're not going to let you come to these college campuses. We're your supporters. We don't want to see you going to college campuses where historically a whole bunch of violent shit has gone down. But the American people, having no memory, they don't understand that a lot of violent things have happened on college campuses. See? So that would have been a way to prove that they care. They don't care. They don't even barely care about their own families if we watch what they do. If they cared about their own families, would they let the government import a bunch of foreigners who don't speak English to dangerously operate 18-wheelers on the road and then to end the lives of people's loved ones? Meanwhile, Benton here, who's a safe driver, who likes to live on the road, who likes to live in a big rig, who would work year-round as a long-haul trucker if the pay was a little better and if the working conditions were a little better. Not a lot, but what brings down the working conditions? Importing labor from people who, a lot of these guys don't get paid. I don't know if y'all know this. And Benton got inspected 6 times in less than 30 days in New Mexico. And New Mexico is one of the 3 states that the feds are targeting because the New Mexico would not enforce the English language proficiency. So do you think they were pulling in these foreigners in these trucks that are unsafe at any speed? Do you think they were pulling them in for inspection? Hell no. Why do you think they were pulling me in 6 times? So much so that after the 4th inspection, I talked them out of doing the last 2 because I was basically like, are y'all just going to inspect me every time I come to New Mexico? They're like, what are you talking about? It's random. I said, it can't be random. I said, it's the 5th time. I said, I got 4. I said, would you like to see the 4 inspection sheets or maybe look in your computer? And they're like, oh, wow, you're right. I said, so I'm asking you, are you going to inspect me every time I come to New Mexico? And then I don't believe you when you tell me that it's random. You're lying. That's a lie. And it was. They knew they were lying. They knew that they have to do a certain number of inspections. They know they can't fill their quota to maintain their certification if they pull in a bunch of people who don't speak English and who their equipment is not safe for the road. So while I'm in there being inspected, 20 of these motherfuckers cruise by on the interstate. And I would have to be insane to do that job for a living. Will I go back to it just long enough to make some money? Probably. And if the company figures out how to keep me, then I'll let them keep me. And see, that's an empowered worker because people say, what do you mean? You got to produce today for this vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions, or you're not absolved of guilt morally, sir. I say, that's bullshit. I don't need to work every day. Meanwhile, what did Jesus do? What would Jesus do? Jesus wouldn't show up here and take a job. Are you crazy? After baptism, Jesus Christ did not work a job, did not handle money, and did not pay taxes because he didn't do anything to owe taxes. Oh, but Christians say we're going to need you to go ahead and do your best imitation of Christ. But because of the writings of Saul of Tarsus, a Roman secular Jew, a.k.a. the Apostle Paul, we going to go by his writings where he says no matter his intention, he can't quite do the right thing. So please understand, Benton, you won't actually be able to live up to this standard. But do all of this dogma and doctrine and check all these boxes, then maybe the big fella will let you get past the judgment. Maybe. Meanwhile, heaven or hell is right here, right now. And old Benton might be able to just grab his fucking shit, walk away from this car, and ascend up out of here within a period of time. Who knows? Or maybe the so-called truth community will figure out how to keep him. What do you think it's going to be? Hey, are we getting appreciated through email. Well, whoever that is, I'm going to take you at the word of the title of the email and say thank you, thank you, thank you. What up, Christos? Good to see you. Did you catch my my boomer rant earlier about millennials and Gen Z have been weaponized to blame all the economics on boomers? Meanwhile, if you go to my post, and this doesn't apply to you, Christos, you're smart enough to figure this out, certainly, but to go to my post tab and watch that thing about the 50s and to be reminded of how repressive and oppressive and depressive that culture would have been. You know, a dictatorial, authoritarian society of, well, yeah, if the man goes off and leaves his family for the day and works in the salt mines or the fucking factory or an office job in a suit, then the loving, doting wife will raise the children, right? And the system will always give her whatever head meds she needs. You know, if anybody's ever watched my favorite TV series, Mad Men, where the plight of Betty, the wife of Don Draper, right? And then Don, uh, because this is what men did back then, remarried within a year after his divorce from Betty, and married a woman of the next generation, and old Dawn, and she was, of course, submissive because the next generation, they were still submissive back then. And what people have forgotten about the peace and love of the late 60s and the 70s is that the men were allowed to go do free love, and the women were allowed to do free love. And in fact, apparently, one of the things women would do is they would pull up their sweater or their shirt to show that they had the pill. They had their little container with the pill in it. Right. This is one of the stories of back then. So that, but who took care of these fellas? The girls still took care of the guys. They still cooked and cleaned and washed their clothes. But it was in the context of, you know, long hair males and taking LSD, and then that gave way to speed, because that's how the government, when it was time to put an end to that, they put an end through amphetamines, right? Well, here's a different drug for you to use, right? But that because it was still the culture of the 50s and the programming of the 50s and the Ozzie and the Harriet, the girls still behaved submissively towards the males, right? That's all been lost and forgotten. So in their attacks, and I don't mean Christos, but in the Gen Z and millennial attacks on behalf of Antithesis and Moloch's machine and the system itself, they've they can't relate to the repression, and they themselves have internalized feminism, and they wouldn't know what to do with a feminine woman. I'm sorry, a feminine submissive woman. Because, and I don't mean Christos, I mean the girls and the fellas, the boys who don't pass into manhood of these generations. They can't have submissive feminine partners, because in order to have a woman express who's been indoctrinated under feminism, who might prefer to express in a feminine submissive fashion, at least behind closed doors, well, that can't really happen, right? Because the males won't become men, or the males aren't forced to pass into manhood anymore. So they can't perform in a masculine enough fashion to enable the women to express. Now, what the women can do is they can go into some disgusting, bastardized version of a kink community, or just a on the down low, you know, local version of Rick Darris from the movie, you know, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. There's always some local coxman to, you know, to run roughshod over them in a bedroom somewhere or in a car somewhere. Like, somebody's going to bang it out, right? Somebody's knocking it out of the park. It used to be possible to do that in a little more of a, you know, there's enough to go around for everybody. So when society needed there to be enough puss to go around to keep the slaves of the time, hi ho, it's off to work I go. Well, surprise, surprise, there was enough submissive, charming, uh, you know, attractive puss to go around. And my apologies, ladies, for referring to it in those terms, but I am speaking to at this point, mainly male audience in a male context. But my apologies for the crude language. But from a male perspective, I mean, that is the primary interest is not in raising a family. The primary interest is not in having a home. The primary interest is not in all of these things, an income. The primary interest is in puss And why is it now that every young male talks about gooning? And why is it that these young males are obsessive? It's because the porn is there to fill the gap. In my day, it was like couldn't think about anything but a woman's private parts. It's all we could think about. See? And that's a prison of its. So if society needs, if Moloch's machine needs people to go to work and build up society only to then allow society to be torn down, well, in that time period in which the machine needs society to be built up, oh, look, now there just happens to be enough to go around for virtually everybody. See? See the game? See the game? So now we're back to Benton physically fucking using his agility and athletic abilities to get in and out of the Whole Foods unmolested. Like literally, not exaggerating. If I plant my feet for more than a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, they're right on top of me. But again, I can go to the Target and nobody gives a fuck. Because there's not culturally there's nothing that fits into their more traditional, actually family-based culture to show up with a gringo that can't speak the language. Oh yeah, he's effectively, they can't tell how fucking tall I am. They're fucking 5 foot flat. I might as well be 7 feet tall, right? Hell, the men are 5'2". You know, if they're not from here. I'm talking about the ones from and then the ones who are from here, they don't want a white boy anyway. Good. Who cares? I already had at least one. I've tasted that flavor at least once. I'm all good. Taste the rainbow, motherfuckers. I've tasted more of the rainbow than most of you. What a blessing. Anyway, let's not devolve into that. So yeah, America as a series of cultural revolutions. The weaponry of the realm equals mockery and ridicule, fear, guilt, and shame. Fear is the mind killer. And so, about the streams, well, the streams are important to me, the live streams. And that's good enough. I mean, really, it is. Thank you for the donations. And does it increase the likelihood of more or greater frequency and a less likely that I'll take time off? Sure. But tomorrow I got to go do the laundry. So if, maybe there'll be a stream, maybe there won't. Or I get to go do the laundry. See the reframing? I get to go do the laundry. Many people that would love to have clean clothes who just, it's not in the cards for them today to be able to go even wash their clothes, lest we forget. So let's not treat the blessing as if it may be a curse, right? Let's not do that. Oh, well, it's time for egg drink. So let me go ahead and do egg drink. And I'll keep yapping, but I would say the stream is most likely officially over at this point as far as we're now entering the non-tent portion. And since I'm not on StreamYard, I'm not able to, and thanks again for the email I received. It looks like I've received an Amazon gift card. And if I'm being punked with somebody, just, I've only read the subject line, but assuming I'm not being punked, then thank you. Much appreciated. And where'd the flashlight go? I just had it. Here's a Motorola phone with the double chop, turns the flashlight on. They must have patented that, because unless it's changed, I believe they're the only ones with that feature. Probably wrong on that, but I've never had a different phone that did that. Did I put it in my pocket? Everything, just to live in a car or a big rig is to just lose everything all the time, all day long, and then just get to search for it. What the fuck? This is crazy. Well, I do have a backup, of course. If anybody knows me, of course I have a backup. Oh, there it is. Nope, that's the seat belt, or the seat belt receptacle. Goodness gracious! You must be sitting on it. It's the only. What the hell? What a life! What a death! What a death! Anyway, going to the backup. Then I have a part of my brain that's just, it has trouble giving up the mission. Now we're just looking and looking and looking. But yeah, it's here somewhere. That's really all that matters. So going to the backup. Backup. Where is it? Where they say two guns is one gun and one gun is no guns. I guess it's the same with flashlights. That's another part of spiritual growth. I'm pretty sure I never would have unlocked the achievement of true knowledge of self with having a freaking arsenal of weaponry. So I'm now sans firearms and planning on maintaining that, unless something really unforeseen occurs, which I doubt it would. All right. Eggs. Where's the eggs? And I'll say for the record, I don't have a problem with foreign truck drivers if it was done the right way, which it's not. I don't personally care. Oh, there's the flashlight. Somehow it ended up in the front seat. Aha. How silly. So, one of the things the donations pay for is flashlight batteries. So thank you for that. And with Christos in the house, I'm almost out of mushroom powder, and I really prefer the liquid anyway, if possible. But although I did find a really good cordyceps militaris, it's quite expensive, but it's a powdered extract. I don't know that I'll be doing that necessarily, but now they're starting to say that the reishi powder extract can cause liver damage over time. So now it's like, well, wait a minute. I can't heal all my organs and receive all of this active healing in the name of the Lord Christ Jesus and then just fuck it off on the back end. That's not an option. Here's a 12-pack of what they call sardines, but it's actually herring. And I got, this is another thing the donos buy. So at some point I'll be reordering these. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got 8 of them left out of a 12-pack. I picked up a case of canned apricots yesterday, $35. I had 2 cans yesterday. I had been keeping it to 1 a day, but that's $6 worth of apricots. Damn near. And black beans, although I do find trouble, the black beans have a lot of nutrition. I think it does make it a little harder to go to the bathroom at times for me, but TMI, but it is what it is. My apologies. Beans certainly punch above their weight when it comes to nutrition, but then a lot of folks can't eat beans because when it gets in there and mixes with all the processed foods, can become a very bad situation. Well, I don't have to worry about that with the gas and the bloating and such, because there's no interplay between the McDonald's and the beans. So. We got that going for us. Monster energy drinks or whatever. Oh, and I ordered some I ran out of dandelion leaf and root tea, so there's some of that waiting for me if I manage to hike my happy ass to Whole Foods today. Maybe I will, pardon me. Let's see. Oh, and I can use Amazon gift cards at Whole Foods as long as I do a pickup. As long as I schedule a pickup where they, do the shopping for you. And since I have Amazon Prime, there's no fee or whatever, but I can actually pay with an Amazon gift card. You can't just go shop in the store with an Amazon gift card, but I might get like 6 cans of black beans maybe. And they're like, oh, well, canned? What do you mean? It's like, yo, I'm not cooking fucking beans in the car, man. This is just not going to happen. Like, that's hours of soaking. No. Mm-mm. Negative. Meanwhile, a lot of the people that'll discourage me from eating like canned fish and canned beans, it's like later that day they're in the fucking, Chick-fil-A drive-through or whatever. It's like, oh, okay. I'm glad they encouraged me to go from something that could be more healthy, but I'm doing something that might be, slightly less healthy, and then they are enjoying a fucking combo meal and a Coke or whatever. While you can still afford it, I mean, how much longer is that even going to be? People be able to buy McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and Zaxby's, or I don't know what people eat, whatever that may be, right? And I love it in the truth community because they're like, no, I don't eat that stuff. Bullshit. Bullshit. You can't have people that when they show themselves on panels look the way they look and then they don't eat fast food. Bullshit. Bullshit. It's just it's a treat. Even if it's a treat here and there, well, it's like, yeah, it's fast food. And then pretty easy to lie to oneself about the frequency of the treats now, ain't it? But I deserve it. I deserve a treat. I let the hell realm run a train on me, so now I get to enjoy the goy slop. All right? And isn't that how it works? You tell me. I mean, just the food here in America is it's fucking horrible, dude. And people voted for all this. I remember all that crap I was eating as a young person, growing up, and then once I became a legal adult, just complete trash. This is what we voted for, Americans, with our actions. We took the Pepsi motherfucking challenge with the system, and we chose corporations. I drank so much Coke in my life, I burned out and switched to Pepsi. And by college, I was drinking a 3-liter of Mountain Dew a day. I'm not even kidding. That is not an exaggeration. Sophomore year of college. 3-liter. Myself. A day. What the fuck? No wonder I almost died. And had these chronic illnesses. Meanwhile, because I lifted weights and, was into health, and I thought I was into health and fitness, I didn't give a flying fuck about my health. I thought I did. I didn't give a shit. Cracking eggs. Ah, fuck. Almost fucked that one up. Separating the whites. Of course, the system's taught everybody egg white's good, egg yolk's bad. It's the opposite. Oh, protein. Yeah, whatever. More protein per gram in the yolks. Per gram. There's just less total grams. So what? Meanwhile, the beans and the fish have plenty of protein, so what's the difference? Now you got bodybuilders that used to eat insane amounts of egg whites every day and threw out the yolks, and they're looking back on it going, you know, I would have been better off eating the yolks, at least some of the yolks also, right? For sure, man. Obviously. And then what are the young people, the boys and the girls now, are on steroids, a lot of them. There's I got a niece on testosterone. Think about that shit. Totally normalized. Put a girl. Imagine a society that puts girls on testosterone. Crazy. And meanwhile, it's a war on testosterone with the young males, and they can't even hardly make, you know, most of them make less than I do, and I'm 50. And then my niece is probably running around with at least as much as I am, maybe more. Who knows? Craziness, man. Complete insanity. And, you know, this is the system that people want to defend. What? Why? Because people think it might be possible to go back to the 1950s. Meanwhile, who the fuck would want to go back to those levels of repression and, you know, everybody, you know, having to be the same? But then what I see now is, yeah, people look funky and they got tattoos and all of this, but they all have, you know, it's all sort of the same thing, right? And I walk around when it's sunny sometimes and take my shirt off and walk around, and people are probably like, where are his tattoos? Like, what is this? Huh? I mean, I don't, you know, do whatever you want. I don't care if people have tattoos. But, oh, in the 1950s, you think you're going to be a teenage girl and, oh, I'm into tattoos. No, you're not. You think, nobody would tattoo you, even if you wanted a tattoo. And you want to talk about a scandal, a girl in the 50s getting a tattoo? A boy even, but I mean, I guess if he goes off in the Navy or whatever, you know, that's about the only way to get a tattoo back then. You know, could the young girls even wear a pair of pants, right? Damn sure couldn't wear yoga pants and show your ass to everybody. You know, we had yoga pants and stretch pants when I was a kid, and you never saw any girl's ass because they always wore a long sweater or a long t-shirt 100% of the time. Because it wasn't culturally acceptable to run around with a girl showing her booty. But at a certain point, it became okay to show the booty in a pair of jeans. But then in the 50s, you know, dresses. So is that what people want to go back to? Right? Might as well go full muzzy at that point. Fuck, just if you're going to subjugate the broads, just go all the way. You know, why stop there? Put him in a fucking just head to toe Pac-Man outfit. Like a ghost from Pac. I mean, seriously. Where does it end? I'm for freedom. Not that we've ever had it, not that well, you know. And again, what I am will never know slavery, but the fuck is happening? So Dick Gregory, rest in peace, may peace be upon him, he always liked to ask rhetorically, are you crazy? Well, the answer is yes. The people are crazy. Clearly. Clearly. And to quote Arkansas Razorbacks legendary basketball coach Nolan Richardson when interviewed by Billy Packer on CBS, well, a blind man could see that, Billy. Yerba mate, Christos, if you're around. Yerba mate. Wonderful. What a blessing. Ain't that right, Pooch? I heard a Pooch barking. Poochie likes it. Remember, folks, the game of life, Mikey likes it. Or no, that was the cereal. Mikey likes it. In a world of death and via games of lies, life is a board game and a breakfast cereal. Or it used to be. Or am I misremembering the board game? I might be misremembering the board game. Maybe that's a Mandela. Who knows? Who cares? As my people might like to say, it don't make no matter. And they don't really say that. It's just more of a, I guess more of like a Depression era thing that I've heard here and there, and I just think it's funny. All right. Oh yeah, mushroom powder. This is chaga, reishi, and lion's mane, but it's not an extract, so it just kind of is what it is. But it was affordable. Better to have it than not. But anyway, where the fuck? Okay. But you know, it's a creature comforts. If I just grab my shit and wander off, then you know, it's not like I'll have access to be able to do my elaborate fucking egg drinks every day, right? Oh man. What a silly person. Probably take a week or so off the mushrooms because I'm almost out, and then with any of these supplements, it's good to roll off of them from time to time. Just sort of, that's really the only way to know if they're working or not. And yeah, the placebo effect is real, but who cares? Yeah, I strongly believe it works, and so that's probably half the effect. Great, even better. Even better. So if it's doing the other 50% and my strong belief doubles it, then let's get it on. Cayenne. Cayenne powder. Ceylon cinnamon. I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation, but wonderful. If anybody remembers that cinnamon challenge, that was that regular cassia cinnamon, and a fucking spoonful of that will straight up kill people. I mean, like for real. Not everybody, but it will straight up kill folks. It's liver toxic. It's to be used sparingly. The Ceylon has a milder, more subtle flavor, but it's safe to take in larger amounts over a longer time. None of this is health advice. Talk to your doctor and do your own research. I'm speaking only from my own experience. These streams are for entertainment purposes only, for none of this shall amount to a hill of beans, as we all know, right? Or at least the royal we. Hey, look, I can't ever say this right, but it's iodine, but it's POV iodine or some shit. Maybe I'll get around to actually like a proper foot bath here in the car. I could boil some water and mix it with some, room temp water. Take care of the old fungus. How? And sometimes I do sort of forget. I'll start to think about, well, maybe I could meet a lady or whatever. And then I'm like, oh yeah, you're not with those toes, sir. Not with those toenails. What's your plan for making sure she never sees you? It's like, no, I'd have to let her know day one. Like, hey, lady. Or I could just start talking in a southern accent. One of my favorite things about California women is they have the good sense to not have anything to do with the guy that talks like I do. So there's always that. I could probably just, if I don't want to get mobbed at the Whole Foods, I could just make a t-shirt that says foot fungus and a southern accent. That'd get them the fuck away from me. I guess we dust bowled these fools enough where they're like, no, we're good. We're good on them yokels. We don't need any more. As much as they might have read books and know a thing or two, and have some genetics, we're good on all that. How? All right, I told you it was non-tent. Oh, here we go. Your water is boiled, sir. Wonderful. Boondabar. All right, what time is it? Right on time. All right. I'd show the process here, but I don't really have a way to do all of this and film it or show it on the cam. Got to remember to buy more coffee filters. They used to be at Vaughn's. If you waited till they went on sale, they were $4.99. Now they're $5.99 on sale. What? Of course, I guess that's to be expected. Oh shit. Anyway, all right, we're out of here. Thanks for watching. Bye. Thanks for the donos.